Well, it happens to be, let's see here, the weekend. And here's our weekend boy, the ever-popular Mr. Movie himself, Michael Snyder. How you doing, Michael?
I'm good, Alex, live from Hollywood. And yes, I am Mr. Movie. I'm going to get a tattoo that says Mr. Movie. I'm not. I refuse to get tattooed. Life has tattooed me. And speaking of tattoos, my brain has been tattooed by a bunch of new films, and that's why we're here, and we should get to them. And when I say new film, maybe that's really not quite accurate, because the first film we're going to talk about is Dumb and Dumber 2, spelled, of course, T-O, because, hey, it's dumb. And I have to say that I went in there with an open mind and an open heart, because when the Farrelly brothers first broke through so many years ago, 20-ish or so, with Dumb and Dumber, starring Jim Carrey as Lloyd and Jeff Daniels, of all people, as Harry, two idiotic buddies, I laughed. I thought it was funny, and it kind of launched the Farrellys' career in a big way in terms of cranking out these stupid comedies. Well, I don't know what to say except that the morons, Lloyd and Harry, Carrie and Daniels, are back for better or worse, mostly for worse, and they're older. How much older? Well, Harry lets Lloyd know he needs a kidney transplant, and when the boys discover that the local slut, played, by the way, in 2014 by Kathleen Turner, had Harry's child years ago, so they decide to find the kid since her kidney is a genetic match and it'll save Harry's life. And the blithe idiocy of the original is so 20 years ago, and the juxtaposition of Jeff Daniels in his role in the newsroom recently is so jarring in my mind. but give it up to him for committing.
Well, no, but also you have to hand it to him for being able to do both things so adroitly.
Exactly. And there's no complaining about the comic chops of Jim Carrey or Mr. Daniels. And when they're given something to work with, even Carrey at this late point in his career where he's not a big star anymore, really, they do it and they commit and give it up to them. But Kathleen Turner, too, I mean, she's stocky with the chipmunk cheeks. They've allowed the Farrellys to actually make fun of her aging looks, which I found very disconcerting. If the only thing they can do these days to make me squirm is to insult Kathleen Turner for getting older, there's a problem here. So this isn't funny enough by a long shot. The Farrelly shock comedy has kind of lost its ability to seem fresh and daring in all this time. And in fact, when's the last time they made a truly good comedy? Kingpin? Something About Mary? You tell me.
That's about it.
Well, in this case, it turns out that the daughter has been adopted by the wealthy and successful scientist with a conniving Black Widow-type wife who wants to bump him off. And so trouble ensues on the road trip to find the girl. You've got Rob Riggle as the henchman to the wife. The wife's played by Laurie Holden from The Walking Dead. We haven't seen her since she turned into a zombie, and she's fine here, but the movie's just not funny. So sorry, Charlie. Okay, how about a good movie? How about one of the best films I've seen in a while? Foxcatcher is a drama based on the real and disturbing story of a gold medal winning wrestler named Mark Schultz, who is stuck in the shadow of his brother, who is kind of a coach and a wrestler and a nice guy, and decides to take the help of an eccentric multimillionaire who's also kind of super creepy, John DuPont, who decides he's going to be the personal coach and contributor to the U.S. Olympic wrestling team that's going to the 1988 Seoul Olympics. But this guy DuPont has serious mother issues and a very unsettling obsession with Mark. And the three characters, the two brothers and DuPont, are played by, respectively, Channing Tatum, who I kind of make fun of as sort of a wooden actor, but he's really spot on here. Mark Ruffalo, who plays the brother Dave, he's so good. I know they're going to get awards attention. And the real surprise, and we've heard the buzz about it, Steve Carell gives what's probably the best performance of his career, comedy, drama, whatever, as John DuPont. And this film, set in the mid-'80s, they get all the kind of art direction right. They get the tone of it right. They go to the Valley Forge encampment of DuPont, his sprawling manor, and they turn it into a wrestling camp. I mean, it is very upsetting. I mean, truly a phenomenal story that gets more and more upsetting as it goes on. And it's something a lot of people may not remember, and it's something that really, really happened. Dan Futterman and Max Fry wrote this thing, and it's a great script. Bennett Miller, who directed Moneyball, directed it. It is a corker, and I recommend it highly.
Is Carell Oscar fodder for this thing?
He is, and as a matter of fact, I'm not going to be spilling any beans here or spoiling anything by saying that he's going to be up there with Benedict Cumberbatch, Eddie Redmayne, and Michael Keaton when the nominations are discussed. Keaton and Birdman, Eddie Redmayne and The Theory of Everything. We've already reviewed those films, so you know how I feel about the actors. And I haven't talked about The Imitation Game, which is Benedict Cumberbatch's performance as Alan Turing. But it is a Turing de force, if you will. Yes. Anyway, so yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah. People are going to be talking about Carell's performance here. It is creep-tastic. As the mother, by the way, thank you. The mom. Oh, thank you, Avast. The mom is played by Vanessa Redgrave, and she doesn't disappoint either. It's a good film, man. Foxcatcher.
Okay.
Let's see what we have here. Oh, Beyond the Lights is a movie about a young, half-black, half-white British girl who has a voice like a bird and a stage mom from hell. And she's pushed this girl into pop music since she was a young kid who loved, the soulful music of Nina Simone. And when we catch up to her after a brief prologue, she is the singer and sex symbol for a famous American rapper. And she's performing at a big awards show, and everybody's giving her accolades. She has her new, fabulous new album is set to drop, and she has a massive emotional crash and decides to do something very radical. And she's only saved by the ministrations of an LA cop. Beyond the Lights is your basic kind of melodramatic show business love story, and it only works on the strength of the woman who plays our singer, Noni, and she is Gugu Mbatha Raw, who earlier in the year is so fantastic in this movie, Belle, that it's worth an Oscar nomination, the period piece about the half-black, half-white, aristocrat in England back in the day. And in this, she's completely different, total 360, well, total 180, whatever. Anyway, she is fantastic. And it could have been terrible, but she is really wonderful in it. And admittedly, it was a bit like Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Beyonce, Lee Daniels, and Kevin Costner present The Bodyguard 2, Electric Googaloo. Googaloo. But, it's going to find an audience. And I just think that she's fantastic. Gina Prince Blythewood wrote and directed. Support comes from Minnie Driver as the mom, Danny Glover as the cop's dad, Nate Parker as the cop who falls in love with the singer, and vice versa. It's, I guess, if Lifetime had an urban division, that's where we'd find a movie such as Beyond the Lights. And, maybe not aimed at me, but I thought that they committed to it. Yeah. And she's great. She's great. Rosewater is a docudrama based on a New York Times bestseller, a memoir called Then They Came for Me, a family story of love, captivity, and survival, written by a journalist from Tehran named Maziar Bahari, who is a naturalized Canadian and, lives in North America and decides to go back home and visit his mom and somehow wangle an interview with Mir Hussein Mousavi, who back in 2009 was a challenger to Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and kind of a reformer and was thought to have the country's support. So this guy goes back there and ends up being kind of arrested by the cops and accused of espionage. And this film is a solid debut as a writer and director by Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart, of course, hosted a Daily Show, satirist, comedian. You don't think he has it in him, but Rosewater is pretty damn good, particularly for a first timer. I don't want to do the old talking dog thing. It's not how well the dog talks. It's the fact the dog talks at all. I'm not going to say that about Jon Stewart. This is a very accomplished piece of work. Yeah, and yet, it has its sort of cliched moments, but it's all that's transcended by Mexican actor Gael Garcia Bernal, who is wonderful as Bahari. His mom is played by Shura Agdashlu. Uh, it's a very well done film. Maybe a little dry for some, but it's a great story and very inspiring, and reminds us about what's going on over there. We cannot forget how much tumult there is in the Middle East, and this will remind us that it's ongoing, and there are people, humans involved that don't deserve to be screwed over. So yeah, I give Rosewater a recommendation. Finally, let's wrap it with Merchants of Doubt, kind of an interesting documentary that is being released this weekend in New York and LA for Academy Award consideration. And it's not a great documentary, but I found it incredibly entertaining, and I found it very upsetting to the point where I, at one point, wanted to run to the screen and punch the guy on the screen in the mouth. And it basically talks about American spin doctors, the people that tried to convince the masses that cigarettes were not killing them, that flame retardant blankets did not have toxic chemicals in them, and that there is no climate change, specifically the latter. That is a main thrust of the movie, and maybe it would have been nice to have it more balanced in terms of these other horrible circumstances that are being sold to the public. And it comes from a book, and it's been made into a very entertaining film by director Robert Kenner, and it actually begins with a sleight of hand expert at the Magic Castle in L.A. Showing a little bit of that distraction that hey, we lead you somewhere else and we do something really clever in front of you and you don't even realize it's being done. That's the spin doctor's credo. And when we see some of the guys, the lobbyists, and some of the mouthpieces for the tobacco industry, and particularly for the fossil fuel industry, it's infuriating. This is done in a very kind of colorful way and very engaging. Merchants of Doubt should probably be seen. People should see the sort of lies and the way the lies are dispensed. And I say Merchants of Doubt is something to watch on video, or if you have the theater in your town when it opens at the beginning of the year, you may want to support it because it's got an important message.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go.
Yeah. I saw Interstellar.
Well, what'd you think?
I saw Interstellar.
Yeah. It's quite an epic. It's certainly beautiful.
No, but epic doesn't count when there's nothing else going on. I mean, it's half a good movie. The first half is pretty good, and then enter Matt Damon.
Hey, whoa! Spoiler alert! Enter Matt Damon.
How is Matt Damon even remotely a spoiler alert?
Well, I don't know. He's not in the cast list.
Well, good. And Christopher Nolan shouldn't have been on the director's list either. This is a absolutely boring film. There you go.
Well,
anyway, listen, we got to go. We're running way over here. These people have had to listen to us for almost 20 minutes now, and that's more than they should have to bear. Tell them where they can find you, Michael.
I'm at Culture Blaster on Twitter, and the Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page on Facebook lets you dip into what Alex and I do every week and other goodies, so drop by there.
Thanks, Michael. See you next week. And
you got it.
He will join us once again next week with his little Culture Blast. Stay tuned for more programming here on GabNet.